Thank you so much for attending my PowerPoint presentation on Witch Doctor, a Supp for Psychopaths. Witch Doctor is a ranged intelligence support where all of his spells are really good. Paralyzing Cask is a great stun that turns into one of the best stuns in the game if there are two targets standing next to each other, since you can stun lock them for an eternity. Maledict, which is an amazing damage multiplier that turns maybe kills into absolutely kills. And Voodoo Restoration, one of the single most mana efficient spells in the game. However, all of these pale in comparison to Death Ward, his ultimate, that, when combined with an Aghanim Scepter, becomes an absolute nightmare to deal with. A running trend with Witch Doctor is that while he is an absolute joy to play, and incredibly fun, and one of the most picked supports for a very good reason, he's also an absolute nightmare to play against, and one of the least fun heroes to see staring at you from across the lane. Naturally, he's one of the most picked regardless of skill or meta. Let's start with the laning phase. You can pair Witch Doctor up with pretty much any position 1 and he will probably have a really solid lane. Maledict turns scratch damage into massive harassment and will force the offlaner to run around in the trees and pop a tango every single time that you use it. This opens up a really good opportunity to box out with the position 4 player, and you can immediately get rid of all their harassment damage that they worked so hard to do by just hitting the W key, because Voodoo Restoration is an incredibly low mana cost spell that does a ton of healing in the early game. And not only does it heal you, it also heals your carry at the exact same time. Lastly, Paralyzing Cask will have them constantly second guessing their position, because if it's only them and a single melee creep alive, they're going to get stunned and take a ton of damage, and when combined with the rest of the position 1 spells and Maledict, they're probably going to die. There are certain hero combinations where the enemy offlaner just doesn't get to play Dota. Juggernaut is probably the most famous one. Combo is simple: throw out Cask, stun the offlaner for a sec, cast Maledict, Juggernaut spins, the offlaner is probably going to die. But even so, there's a ton of other heroes that are really good and you might not expect it. Phantom Assassin benefits a lot from getting an early ring of Bassi, being able to spam knives and make your Maledict harass even more powerful. Sven is really good because you can stun them for a really long time between Cask and Stormhammer while also dealing a ton of damage. Really, any carry that interacts with the enemy offlaner, when combined with Witch Doctor, turns the lane into an absolute meat grinder that is going to suck to play against. But again, you are going to be having the absolute time of your life. If you're playing as position 4 and you want to get active, Witch Doctor's great at that too. It's really hard to position against Paralyzing Cask when you have no idea the Witch Doctor is there. Pop Maledict to make sure that the iffy damage totals turn into an absolute guaranteed kill, and then heal up your mid laner with Voodoo Restoration afterwards. Having a great laning stage combined with great roaming potential means that Witch Doctor usually gets his ult a little earlier than other supports in his position, and that's a great thing for him and terrible news for the enemy team, because his ultimate is Death Ward, and this ability is a fucking problem. When used, it summons this cute little totem thing that starts a dance party, I guess, and also shoots out a ton of purple little comets that deal pure damage with 50% bonus accuracy, and these little things, combined with Maledict and Paralyzing Cask to keep you in place and multiply the damage, means that you are probably going to die. Seeing a Witch Doctor walk out of the woods in a lane they didn't start in is a terrifying experience because of Death Ward, but the horror doesn't stop there. Because Death Ward is already good enough without Ags, but with it, it becomes the single most threatening support ultimate in the game from an offensive perspective. Aghanim Scepter makes it so that those little purple fangs will bounce between enemy units. It can't hit the same one twice, but it can bounce between pretty much all the heroes on an enemy team, dealing a ton of pure damage as they go, and the same is true for the second stream coming off of Cleft Death if he takes that passive. Now remember that Death Ward is a summoned unit, technically, which means that Witch Doctor doesn't necessarily have to be near it. He can be on the high ground, he can be in the trees, he can be in Fog of War, where you can't hit him, but Death Ward can absolutely hit you. And when it does, it'll also tear up your entire team. His Aghanim Scepter is amazing, and it's compounded by his innate, which is Gree, and if you call it Gris, I'm going to report you after the game. This item absorbs all of the gold that Witch Doctor would have lost if he had died, while also accumulating passive income. It starts in his neutral slot, but he can move it to an active item slot, and then pop it at any point he wants in the game. What this means is that if you see a Witch Doctor running around with a point booster, you have to assume that the next time you see him, he will have a full Aghanim Scepter, because he just has a massive malpractice insurance fund that he can cash in at any time to get one of the biggest item power spikes in the entire game. This also means that it is guaranteed to happen at the absolute worst moment. You guys are finally about to crack through tier 3 and take high ground? Nah, dude. Witch Doctor got his eggs. You're all gonna die. Maybe you're smoking into a Roche pit, determined that this Aegis will finally be the thing that secures the victory. Nah, dude, that's Witch Doctor's Aegis now. Death Ward is a massive issue, and if you're going to try to counter Witch Doctor, you have all of these abilities to worry about, and then a Death Ward as the cherry on top. I have some thoughts on his facets, both the ones he currently has and used to have. Feel free to read about them here. Now, if you've played against Witch Doctor, and if you play Dota 2, you absolutely have, you're probably wondering how to beat this piece of shit. So let me give you some tips. The first tip I can give you is to have burst healing in the lane. The way Maledict works is it takes all the damage you've received over the course of Maledict and deals a portion of it to you again in 3 bursts. This means that if you heal yourself at the beginning of Maledict, it will have an impact on the amount of damage that you take at the end. So, as soon as you get hit with Maledict, pop a Tango, pop your wand, or, my personal favorite, pick up Infused Raindrops. Not only will it block the first damage instance off of Maledict, it'll also come off cooldown in time to pop the third one. So that's a massive amount of damage mitigation from that item. Other than that, just try to avoid getting hit by a good paralyzing cask and keep your distance. Now, if you are up against one of those grinder lanes I mentioned earlier, like Juggernaut, itemize for the jungle and do your best. The second thing is dealing with Death Ward. Now, Witch Doctor can pop it from a very far distance, so that means that as soon as the threat of Death Ward is present, you need to deal with it. If you're a hero like Axe, Slardar, any Blink Stunner, jump in, try to find him, bash, call, cancel it at all costs. Even if you die in the process, dealing with Death Ward and potentially killing Witch Doctor in the process is going to do a lot of work. Worst case scenario, you're absorbing a lot of the Death Ward away from your team so it can't bounce and kill your supports who are literally doing nothing at all. Another option for this is heroes that can cancel channeled abilities from a pretty good distance. Muerta's Deadshot is probably ideal, assuming that you have vision of the Witch Doctor, but if you don't, Medusa can use Stone Gaze and run towards the Death Ward, because Witch Doctor will always be facing it. So after a couple of seconds of tanking it, it is guaranteed to stop it, even if he's BKB'd. Lastly, Warlock, if you want to go full nuclear, drop the rock on him. It's a massive BKB piercing AoE stun, it'll cancel out Death Ward, and now you also have a Golem. Of course, the best way of dealing with Death Ward is to never have to deal with it in the first place. If you see a Witch Doctor on the enemy team, and you are a Blink Assassination type hero like Ursa or Templar Assassin, keep in mind that if you see him, you need to kill him. He is going to be priority number 1. If the enemy support duo is an Oracle and a Witch Doctor, they are honestly of equal priority. If you see a Witch Doctor, you need to kill the Witch Doctor. If you let him live, you're gonna lose the team fight, and if you lose the team fight, you'll probably lose the game. So, in conclusion, Witch Doctor is extremely fun, and you should absolutely play him. He's also extremely terrifying, and you absolutely shouldn't play against him. He's one of the few position 5s where, if the game is going south, you can farm up an Agnum Scepter and potentially just win the game on your own. Pair him up with other big team fight ultimates like Enigma, Axe, and Tide, and you've got a recipe for success. Peace on planet Earth.